India's roads pulse with life: buses, scooters, rickshaws, and cars weaving through endless streams of traffic. The air vibrates with energy and, unfortunately, with pollution. As India's cities grow denser and its population surges past 1 billion, the urgency to transform its transportation sector has never been greater. The answer, many believe, lies in electrifying the nation's vehicles. But here's a twist. India's electric vehicle revolution, so often celebrated as a leap into the future, is quietly powered by technology from its most formidable rival, China. This paradox raises a crucial question. Can India electrify its roads without becoming dangerously dependent on a geopolitical competitor? The answer is complex, and the story behind it could shape the future of mobility for generations. Let's rewind for a moment. In the last decade, electric vehicles have gone from niche curiosity to global phenomenon. Countries from Norway to New Zealand have set ambitious targets for zero-emission transport. At the forefront sits China, which has rapidly become the world's undisputed leader in electric vehicles, manufacturing not only the most EVs, but also the lion's share of lithium-ion batteries, power electronics, and the rare earth minerals that make this technology possible. Chinese roads are now home to millions of electric cars, buses, and scooters, while brands like BYD and SAIC challenge Western giants such as Tesla and Volkswagen on the world stage. Meanwhile, India has set its own electrification goals that are nothing short of audacious. By the year 2030, the Indian government wants 30% of passenger cars to be electric. The goal for 2- and 3-wheelers is even more staggering, a target of 80% adoption by the same year. This is no small feat. India's vehicle market is colossal, with millions of new cars and an even greater number of scooters and auto rickshaws sold each year. To achieve these targets, India needs to put literally millions of new electric vehicles on its roads, install at least 5.5 million public charging stations by the end of this decade, and build a robust ecosystem of suppliers and technical know-how. But here's the catch. India's domestic electric vehicle industry is still finding its feet. While companies like Tata Motors, Mahindra, and Ola Electric are often hailed as local champions, they rely heavily on imported technology, especially from China. According to Shubham Munde, a senior analyst at Market Research Future, without Chinese tech, India would face supply shortages, delayed rollouts, and reduced product diversity. This is not just a minor inconvenience. It is a foundational dependence, touching every aspect of the electric vehicle value chain. Let's break down the numbers. More than 85% of India's battery imports come from China. In 2023 alone, India spent over $2 billion on battery imports, with Chinese suppliers capturing almost the entire market. To put that in perspective, India's battery import bill is projected to reach $120 billion by the end of this decade. In addition, China controls around 90% of the world's rare earth minerals, elements like neodymium and dysprosium that are essential for making electric motors and battery packs. These minerals are not easily replaced. If China were to restrict exports, the impact on India's production lines could be devastating. But it's not just about hardware. Indian automakers are increasingly entering joint ventures with Chinese companies. These partnerships offer more than just access to parts. They provide critical knowledge transfer. Indian firms can leapfrog years of research and development by tapping into Chinese partners' established electric vehicle platforms, battery modules, and manufacturing playbooks. Lian Huang, CEO of Rapid Direct, puts it this way. Chinese firms help local partners build supply chain reliability and achieve faster localization by starting with pre-existing part libraries and manufacturing standards. In other words, India is buying not just components, but a shortcut to industrial maturity. Yet this partnership is fraught with tension. Since the deadly border clashes between Indian and Chinese troops in the summer of 2020, relations between the two countries have grown colder. India has banned dozens of Chinese apps, blocked high-profile Chinese automakers like BYD from setting up local factories, and cited national security concerns in restricting certain investments. At the same time, however, policymakers in New Delhi have quietly cut tariffs on more than 35 electric vehicle components, most still sourced from China, making it easier for Indian companies to import the technology they need. This has produced a striking paradox. On one hand, India aspires to build a resilient, self-sufficient electric vehicle ecosystem, one that stimulates local innovation, creates jobs, and insulates the country from global supply shocks. On the other, it cannot realistically meet its electrification targets without Chinese assistance, at least in the short term. This reliance is shaping the market in dramatic ways. Consider MG Motor, a joint venture between Indian conglomerate JSW and China's state-owned SAIC. Its flagship model, the MG Windsor, has become India's best-selling electric car, rapidly challenging Tata's long-held dominance. In parallel, homegrown startups like BlueSmart have collapsed, and even major domestic players face mounting difficulties. Tata's electric vehicle orders plummeted from more than 26,000 in 2023 to just around 2,000 in 2024, a staggering decline that underscores the fragility of the sector. The numbers tell a sobering story. Only 7.5% of new vehicles sold in India in 2024 were electric, a slow pace for a country targeting 30% electrification by 2030. The government's recent overhaul of its subsidy program has exposed the industry's weaknesses. Purchase incentives for consumers are shrinking, while new rules require more local assembly but still allow companies to import key components not yet produced domestically. The result? Consumer funding has dropped by more than 1/3 in just 2 years, and many startups are struggling to survive. Hero Electric, India's first e-scooter manufacturer, is facing bankruptcy proceedings. BlueSmart, once touted as the country's answer to Uber with an all-electric fleet, has shut down. Even Ola Electric, once a darling of the sector, is losing ground. This brings us to the heart of the dilemma. As India's import bill for batteries and components balloons, its trade deficit with China continues to widen. According to data from India's Commerce Ministry, electric vehicle-related imports are now a key driver of this deficit. Experts like Jason Altshuler warn that too much dependence on China could undermine India's goal of developing its own EV technology. The stakes are enormous. Should China decide to tighten exports of rare earth minerals or battery cells, a move it has contemplated before, production of up to 6 million Indian electric vehicles could grind to a halt. That's not just a theoretical risk, it's a real vulnerability that could cripple India's green ambitions overnight. So, what's next for India? Can it balance the urgent need for Chinese technology with its aspirations for self-reliance? Or is the country setting itself up for a new kind of economic vulnerability, one where its entire green revolution could be derailed by a single geopolitical dispute? Let's explore the possible futures. One scenario sees India accelerating investment in domestic research, manufacturing, and infrastructure. If the country can build up its own battery factories, develop local sources of rare earth minerals, and nurture a new generation of engineers and entrepreneurs, it could gradually reduce its dependence on China. In this future, India might emerge as a global exporter of electric vehicles and related technologies, carving out a leadership role in the green economy. But this is a race against time. Right now, more than 85% of India's batteries and critical components still come from China. A recent report from the Global Trade Research Initiative warns that within a few years, 1 in every 3 electric vehicles sold in India could be manufactured by Chinese companies or their joint ventures. If India doesn't move quickly, it risks missing the window to build a truly indigenous industry. Alternatively, if India's domestic sector fails to catch up, the risk of supply shocks and price volatility grows. Any sudden restriction on Chinese exports, whether for economic, political, or security reasons, could cripple India's electric vehicle rollout. That's not just hypothetical. China already controls close to 90% of global rare earth mining and has demonstrated its willingness to leverage this power in the past. As Leon Huang notes, partnerships may help India leapfrog development, but if you can't make the core technology, you're always one phone call away from a crisis. On the other hand, these joint ventures and open trade policies could turbocharge India's electric vehicle revolution. Access to proven platforms and established supply chains means Indian consumers can benefit from lower prices, greater variety, and faster adoption. In just the past year, MG Motor, the Sino-Indian joint venture, doubled its market share, and its Windsor model is now the best-selling electric car in the country. Demand for electric vehicles is projected to leap from under 500,000 units next year to more than 3 million by the year 2035. In this scenario, India's cities could see dramatic improvements in air quality, congestion, and public health, provided the supply chain remains stable. But as experts caution, speed without strategy is risky. Pragathi Darapaneni, a respected battery materials scientist, puts it succinctly. Without Chinese tech, India faces shortages, but too much dependence could mean losing the incentive to innovate locally. The Indian government appears to recognize this delicate balance. While it offers incentives for local assembly and manufacturing, it also allows selective imports and has quietly relaxed rules when supply chains get tight. The aim, as policymakers put it, is to integrate with global supply chains, especially China's, until domestic substitutes mature. This approach, sometimes called soft protectionism, stands in contrast to the more aggressive decoupling seen in places like the United States. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how other countries have approached the challenge. The United States, for example, has imposed steep tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle components and restricted market access for Chinese automakers. The result? Slower adoption of electric vehicles and a loss of momentum in the green transition, according to industry analysts. Tu Lei, founder of Sino Auto Insights, notes that America's protectionist policies may have guaranteed it will fall behind in the race for electric mobility. Meanwhile, China's own electric vehicle industry has benefited from massive state support, research and development investment, and a tightly knit supply chain that stretches across Asia. India, by contrast, is attempting to chart a middle path. Rather than isolate itself from Chinese technology, it is seeking to integrate with it, using foreign partnerships to fill gaps in local expertise and infrastructure. The goal is to build a resilient domestic ecosystem while leveraging global best practices and economies of scale. As Anshul Gupta of OPG Mobility points out, addressing infrastructure gaps, supply chain inefficiencies, and high manufacturing costs must take center stage. This balancing act is not without its challenges. Building an indigenous electric vehicle sector requires more than just factories and assembly lines. India must invest in research and development, nurture a pipeline of skilled engineers, and create robust academic industry-government collaborations. Policymakers need to streamline taxes, such as moving to a uniform 5% GST on all electric vehicles and charging services, as recommended by industry leaders like Dinkar Agrawal and Ishan Parwanda. Long-term subsidies, akin to the FAME scheme, could encourage domestic production and innovation, while targeted incentives for charging infrastructure are essential to support the anticipated explosion in demand. At the same time, India must address the fundamental challenge of rare earth mineral supply. The country holds some reserves of these minerals, but has yet to develop large-scale mining or processing capacity. If India can unlock these resources, either through domestic investment or strategic partnerships with other countries, it could gain greater control over its electric vehicle destiny. Until then, experts warn that the risk of overdependence on China remains acute. So, what should investors, entrepreneurs, and policymakers take away from this story? The key lesson is the importance of building resilient, flexible supply chains. India has an opportunity to leverage foreign partnerships for rapid growth, but it must pair this with a relentless focus on local innovation, skills development, and infrastructure. As Raghav Arora of Static notes, technology development will play a pivotal role in accelerating the growth of the electric vehicle ecosystem in India. For consumers, understanding the origins of their vehicles and the global forces shaping prices, options, and sustainability offers newfound agency in making informed choices. The story of India's electric vehicle revolution is, at its heart, a case study in how emerging economies can harness international cooperation to build their own industries, but also how that cooperation comes with hidden strings. And for those watching the global race to electrify, India stands as both a warning and an inspiration. Collaboration may offer speed, but true independence brings security. The challenge is to find the right balance before the window of opportunity closes. Will India build a resilient domestic electric vehicle industry before its dependence on China backfires? The answer remains unwritten. Success will depend on continued investment in homegrown research, bold infrastructure development, and the nurturing of local talent, all while managing foreign partnerships with open eyes and cautious optimism. India's green future will be shaped not only by decisions made in Beijing, but by those forged in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and 1,000 smaller cities where the next generation of innovators is quietly at work. Here's a secret most overlook. The next breakthrough in India's electric vehicle journey may not come from a multinational boardroom or a government lab, but from a small startup or an unsung engineer tinkering with battery chemistry in a workshop far from the headlines. History shows that real independence is built quietly, through hard work, ingenuity, and the determination to shape one's own future. So, what do you think? Can India pull off this high-wire act, or is the country already too deep in the shadow of its powerful neighbor? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this breakdown insightful, please hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the forces shaping tomorrow's world economy and technology. Until next time, stay